Galaxy S24 Ultra versus iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let's find out once and for all which one has the best camera in the game. I will put both phones to the test and cover everything from low light to portrait mode. So keep watching to learn the superpowers of each phone because they do excel in different scenarios. And then you can decide which one is the right phone for you. And let's start with the camera I use the least on any phone. It's selfie camera test time. Let's test the selfie cameras and compare them. The recording has started. We're in just perfect time to test the audio quality. So this is the image and audio quality from the Galaxy S24 Ultra. Let me know what you think. And this is iPhone 15 Pro Max. I want to make sure I don't cover any microphones. And this is the image and audio quality from the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Let me know what you think about this image and audio quality. You know, like I'm just looking at the preview quality. The iPhone has brighter image. So I know that Samsung said that they have 2600 nits for the display brightness for HDR content, but it feels like iPhone is a little bit brighter. There is not much you can control on either of the phones. On the Samsung, you can pause the video and then start recording again, but that's about it. But if we stop the recording and then look at the camera interface, then the Galaxy offers a little bit more, especially if we go into the Pro video mode right here. And here I can control shutter speed, ISO, and all these settings. Maybe not as important if you're filming with the selfie camera. However, some settings are important, like ISO, because if I film in low light environment and the phone just boosts automatically ISO to, let's say, something extremely high, in that case I will get a lot of noise in that image. So in that regard, I think Samsung is superior to the iPhone 15 Pro Max. I can also adjust different white balance here, and guys, you know me, in every video I say that Apple needs to step up their game and add manual controls at least for white balance. I mean, this is Pro Max. What's pro about this phone if I cannot adjust even white balance here? So this is a little bit unfortunate. So let me know what you think about the image quality and which image would you prefer. So the image quality for a selfie camera is more or less the same. I'm not really happy with the results, especially when filming against a bright source of light. In that case, both phones look very HDR-y. While maybe S24 Ultra looks a little bit more natural due to the heavy contrast it applies to the image, while the iPhone feels to have more uniform dynamic range all across the frame. Another difference would be that in the portrait mode, the S24 Ultra allows you to switch from the close-up to wider field of view, while the iPhone gives you just one option. And since we're talking about a camera on the front of the phone, let me share my experience with the new anti-reflective display, because I see a lot of people confused. No, it does not remove all the reflections completely. You still have them, but they're just less prominent. In this short I posted comparing the S24 Ultra to 15 Pro Max, people commented that the display difference is huge. But to be honest, a lot of times it depends on just how you position your phone in relation to light. So in this shot, the Galaxy S24 Ultra definitely looks better. But if I switch the phones in my hands, then the iPhone display will look better. And keep in mind, in this video I did not use any screen protector as I wanted to see the full potential of that coating. But most people will be using the protective film on their screen, so in that case the reflection will be more apparent and pronounced on any phone, and S24 Ultra is no exception. So always take the comparisons online with a grain of salt and common sense. Sometimes I'm amazed just how people glorify the phones and their features and go to war in the comments trying to prove some fictionary feature in the product. So don't do that. And back to the cameras. Here the battle gets more intense since the S24 Ultra has 4 cameras while the 15 Pro Max has 3 only. And I'm saying 3 only like it's not enough. So first, if we just look at the image side by side, both are great. Yes, S24 Ultra has higher megapixel count. It's 200 megapixel on the S24 Ultra versus 48 on the 15 Pro Max, which is supposed to be really important if you want to zoom in on a subject. But honestly, I do not see difference here. Even if I zoom in to 100%, the main difference would be probably in the colors and contrast. When using the telephoto lenses during daytime, S24 Ultra seems to retain more details, but it's only noticeable when zoomed in like 300–400%. But it does that in a way that it sharpens not only the details, but also the grain and noise. As you see clearly here, the time is visible on the clock, but the iPhone is cleaner in terms of noise. So I guess it's the matter of preference at this point. However, there is still something weird happening with the S24 Ultra. Let me show you. Okay guys, one thing I noticed is that the S24 Ultra has something weird happening with the 5x telephoto lens and white balance in auto mode. Have a look. If I turn on the 200 megapixel or even 50 megapixel mode on the S24 Ultra, then something weird with white balance happens. Have a look. So 1x camera, white balance looks good on both phones. Yes, it's different, but these are different phones. So I'm okay with both results from both cameras. But whenever I switch to 5x telephoto, you see, the S24 Ultra goes to really weird magenta purple-ish tint, which does not look good, and it only happens when we turn on the 5x zoom. You see, like there's like a second and then it gets this hue, but you see, like on the iPhone it stays the same. Galaxy, it just goes into something weird, and I don't like this image quality. You let me know which one you prefer, of course, but I think iPhone looks better in this regard. So I was really surprised with that. I do not remember having this problem with my S23 Ultra last year, but here on the S24 Ultra, it is mostly the problem in auto mode, because if you use Pro or Expert RAW modes, you get the access to the white balance adjustment. But I'm sure that it's something that Samsung can fix with a firmware update in the future. Now let's get a bit more in depth with the zoom lens. As I already mentioned in my first video about S24, I think it's not a good move to get rid of the 10x magnification. I know many bloggers are saying it is the way to go, and their reasoning is that it is better for portrait photos. However, for me, it's a step back, and I prefer 10x optical over 10x digital lens. Zoom made this phone a special tool that can be used in work, construction site, and so much more. After all, if you want to take portraits, there's already a 3x telephoto lens here. Well, and now apparently there is another portrait 5x lens again, so it's like two portrait lenses but on one phone. And keep in mind, iPhone 15 Pro Max does not have that additional 3x, it just crops on the main camera. But the result is still good, especially in low light, since the main camera here has better low light performance compared to the 3x lens on the S24 Ultra. So even if you crop, the quality is almost identical. So I think another valid upgrade next year would be still having 10x optical lens and switching the 3x to 5x telephoto. Let me know if you agree with that. When talking about telephoto lenses, both S24 Ultra and 15 Pro Max might have the same 5x lens on paper, but in reality iPhone allows you to zoom optically a little further, so it's 120mm versus 115 on S24 Ultra. And then here with the telephoto lenses, iPhone surprisingly beats the S24 Ultra when taking photos when you have fast moving objects. Once again, I'm talking about auto mode, where the phone decides for you which settings and shutter speed and exposure to set, and in that case iPhone more often comes as a winner, keeping more of the scene in focus. And this is surprising to me, as I expected the S24 Ultra to be the ultimate zoom camera, but it seems like it's not always the case. Yes, it can zoom in digitally up to 100 times in the built-in app, where the maximum magnification on the iPhone is only 25x, but to be honest, at this point, if I zoom in digitally 100 times on the iPhone, the image quality will be the same as on 100 times with the S24 Ultra. So as I already mentioned before, I think Samsung has to return the optical 10x zoom, or maybe introduce an optical zoom lens similar to what I heard the Sony has on one of their flagships, because right now iPhone seems to get better at faster pace each year camera-wise. However, one area when S24 Ultra still outperforms the iPhone is the camera manual mode. Since the iPhone does not have any, S24 Ultra gives you a full range of settings, allowing you to go all in on photography or even videos. And when deciding between the phones, it's probably the major difference here. S24 Ultra gives you full control over photography settings, and iPhone, well, you can drag down the sun icon to adjust the exposure. Maybe for the majority of people it's not so important after all, but I think personally it's nice to have an option to adjust everything manually, especially if you're filming an environment with many different light sources with different temperature. It is super helpful. So I hope next year we will see Pro mode on the Pro Max phones, and finally there will be something truly pro about the phone. At least white balance adjustments would be nice. Alright, now my favorite part of any phone is video capabilities. S24 Ultra has now an option to use 8K resolution not only for the main camera but also for the 5x telephoto, which is a nice addition. Compared to the Galaxy, the iPhone is only 4K, and I can't believe I'm saying only 4K. like it's not enough. Even though it is 4K, it still looks fantastic. I also get many comments from you guys about frame rate, asking which one is better, 24, 30 FPS or 60. And I will make a separate tutorial on that. So if you want to film better content with your phone, then make sure to stay tuned and hit that subscribe button. Now, to decide which phone is better, it is important to understand that there are two ways to film videos on these phones. One way, you open camera app and film in auto mode and let the phone choose all the exposure settings for you. In that case, both phones give amazing image quality on the main and telephoto cameras. Even though I try to keep settings as close as possible on both phones, S24 Ultra sometimes gives this HDR-like footage, which sometimes is good in scenes with high dynamic range, but oftentimes it makes the footage look a little bit unnatural in my opinion. You see guys, I film professionally and I love rich contrast scenes. Like in this video I filmed, see how the shadows are rich in volume and the whole scene just looks contrasty and cinematic. But here right away you can tell that it was filmed on the phone. iPhone on the other hand gives less HDR-like feeling, and probably this is why I prefer this image more. So that was the first way to film, and it's auto mode. For the second way, both phones have their own superpowers. And guys, please be honest and objective to help me choose which one is better here. On one side, S24 Ultra, it has manual mode that lets you choose all the settings the same way as on the photography mode. ISO, shutter speed, all the good stuff. And on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it's their new log format that captures images in flat profile with extended dynamic range, just like it would be on a Pro camera. The problem with that is that the ProRes log format is very big in file size, which makes it a little bit complicated to use. But here comes the second superpower of the iPhone. Besides their new ProRes log format, in collaboration with the Blackmagic design, Apple developed a very special app. And in that iPhone app, now we have an option to film in log but in much smaller compressed file size, which is not much different from what my Pro camera films. And the best part is that this app is absolutely free. It does not have any ads inside, you do not need to register or anything, you just download it and use it. So at this point, now we have a choice to make. It's either the S24 Ultra with the Pro Video mode, which does help with adjusting white balance and exposure, and it will be a great looking image, but it will be closer to what the phone image would look like rather than DSLR camera. Or it's the iPhone 15 Pro Max that has this flat log profile that makes the image less processed and less over-sharpened and more camera-like. And this is really big since a lot of phones and S24 Ultra included tend to over-sharpen the image sometimes. And if you use this free app, the phone camera becomes as good as it gets for at least a year to come. I have a few videos showing the capabilities of the latest Pro Max, and trust me, it's not a gimmick, it really works. So to sum it up, I believe if you're filming in auto mode at all times, then both phones would do a great job. Just choose the quality that is more appealing to you. But if you're planning to use manual mode or get as best footage as possible from the phone, then 15 Pro Max is the way. But hey, that's just my opinion. Let me know in the comments which phone would you prefer for filming videos. Alright, so we still have low light left to cover, but first let's talk about portrait mode. Both phones have more or less similar interface. And as for the quality, some might think that the iPhone would provide a cleaner separation of the subject because there is dedicated LiDAR depth sensor. But to be honest, Samsung gives similar results and both struggle with fine details like the wire right here. In terms of the image quality and contrast, they both have HDR processing but in different ways. So on S24 Ultra, the shadows on the bridge seem to be lifted so we can see more details in the back, while the iPhone processes more the subject in the photo by elevating shadows on the code while bringing the highlights in the sky down, but it's done in a rather cheap way on the iPhone. So once again, I prefer more contrast-rich shadows, so I would choose the S24 Ultra for portrait mode. I think it's also a good time to mention that something strange is happening to the raw photos on the S24 Ultra. See, usually when you take photos in auto mode on any phone, you get a small file size JPEG shot. Usually photos taken in that mode do not contain much info for color grading and compromise the image quality for the small file size. But if you have an option to take a photo in RAW, in that case the phone is supposed to take a non-compressed photo and not put it in any sort of a file container, so you can really push your grade. And for some unknown reason, the S24 Ultra RAW photos are the same in file size as the JPEGs, which is, how do I put it, not raw. Whereas on the iPhone, the raw files are massive in comparison to the JPEGs, and they allow you to push the grade further. So even though there is a mode called Expert RAW on the S24 Ultra, you get all the amazing settings there, but the RAW itself is just not RAW really. At least this is what I concluded from my testing. And I know maybe it's not something Galaxy users will like to hear, but whenever I find something odd with the product, I have to mention it. I did the same thing with my iPhone 15 series. So I will surely test it more and post an update on how it goes in the future videos. And finally, low light. For the 1X main camera, I prefer the S24 Ultra as it gives richer colors, while the iPhone again adds this bluish teal hue to the shadows for more cinematic feeling, I guess. And the same happened in my iPhone 15 versus Google Pixel 8 video, by the way. But that in terms of colors. Now if we talk about the details and how sharp the main camera is, I think iPhone 15 Pro Max is underrated. Just have a look. This is the dedicated 3x telephoto lens on the S24 Ultra. And this is the 3x from the iPhone 15 Pro Max, which is just a crop of the main camera. And I think it proves the point that the 3x telephoto lens is the most unnecessary part of the phone, since competition can provide similar quality by just cropping on the main camera. And as one comment under my last video suggested, make a 4x lens instead of 3x and bring back the 10x optical. And you know what? After seeing these results, I sort of agree. 5x zoom in low light is better on the iPhone. But if I zoom in closer on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, image falls apart with the noise. While the S24 Ultra kicks in the noise reduction and the image processing helps to retain all the info here. And I find it hilarious in a way that the S24 Ultra's crop 10x looks better than the cleaner, supposedly cleaner optical 5x zoom. So I think for the most part, I prefer the S24 Ultra here. But once again, they really need to address that white balance and consistency, since the iPhone gives all the uniform colors from 1x throughout all cameras, while the S24 Ultra changes the white balance after 3x and gives the image that magenta tint, which does not look like anything the scene had in real life. Alright, and I think there is so much more to discover about the S24 Ultra, which I will share with you guys in my next video, so make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and meanwhile make sure to watch this video next, as I think it will be perfect for you, and I'll see you there. Bye bye.